Thank you so much for joining me. This is Holly Hamel Hive podcast picture show. This is my darling friend Desiree Catron, and she is helping me
Hello.
to talk about all the good stuff that we have shared together. And we're going to be talking about mental health and the benefit of support. And she is actually has been a client of mine and my company. And
Yeah.
this is just an opportunity to talk about what it's like to journey and do this life together as um, as friends and having this professional relationship together and just people that are and we both are striving to be leaders in the community too and set good examples for people that are coming up after us as well. So Desiree, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born a goober and I will die a goober. No, I'm just kidding.
Can confirm. Can confirm.
So, no, I met you through our community of friends and musicians and different people that we know here in the Atlanta and Georgia area. A great, beautiful collective, I guess you would say, of individuals. And I was actually in a very, I wouldn't say dark because I was coming out of darkness. Like I just didn't know, it's kind of like in a dark room where there's light outside the door and you see the light around the edges of the door frame. It was that. And that's when you and I started speaking and talking more than just on wine and everything. And I went through a couple of challenges. I don't know what you call the get yourself challenge or went through that. And anyway, started getting into coaching and having a coach and having somebody help me in that capacity. Whereas I had only had therapy before. And the benefit that I got in just 1 week of coaching, I was like, what if I had done this like 5 years ago? Like where would I be right now? And and then you and Lauren and Brian introduced us to the Supernova Society and started opening up just a great dialogue and community. And through that, went into more coaching, and it's really, really changed my life, and it's helped us grow as friends. And yeah, so that's my experience, and I'm learning to not be ashamed of my codependency, my obsessive compulsive disorder, and my
Yep.
PTSD.
Yep. We can turn
I'm
all of yes.
embracing them, and
Yes.
yeah, just loving life and being codependent no mo.
No mo. No
No
mo.
mo.
No mo. I love it. Yeah, it's been a really great journey, and I remember
Mhm,
having received therapy too. And therapy is so beautiful because it's the correct thing for the time and place. And so what I've the way that I describe therapy versus life coaching to people is, and there is some crossover, but that therapy is for when you're in crisis and you're
mhm,
having trouble functioning and like really need some support like moving through like a breakdown or crisis situation. And then life coaching
mhm.
is more for you're functioning at a decent level, but you want to be even better and like being more expansive and kind of reaching more goals and being held accountable. And there is a lot of crossover in the in between place there,
Yes.
but I do feel like once you're in a good like therapy has helped me to get into a stable place where I'm like, okay,
Mhm,
I've now overcome childhood stuff. I've overcome divorce stuff and all of the,
mhm.
pain and trauma and things like that. And then life coaching is for um, taking that stable place and really expanding it and exalting it and then pushing
Yes.
myself to places I didn't think I could go before.
Yes.
And
It's almost like, I don't know, this is probably a cruddy analogy, but it's almost like, if you ever like broken an ankle or something like that, therapy is like you go to the doctor, you get the x-ray, you get the cast, you get set up. And then coaching is like the physiotherapy where you're getting the movement back and,
Yes.
okay, this is how I can walk correctly and not, be prone to injuring my ankle again.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of perceive it.
Hmm.
So
I love that. Thank you. That's a wonderful analogy. Yeah, it's like therapy is for like when it's broken and needs like resetting and
mhm,
needs some acute, immediate care. And
yeah.
then coaching is learning how to, yeah, to be an athlete on that, on that ankle again, learning
Hmm.
how to use it with precision and to be masterful in, not only
Hmm.
protecting it so it doesn't get hurt, but then also to achieve, records with it that you never thought that
Yeah.
you could. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, so let's just go ahead and dive in.
All
And
right.
I would love to, you mentioned, codependency and PTSD and OCD and things like that. So how have you become so successful in, your jobs and relationships and social and all of the places that you are just, thriving from where I'm sitting? It looks like you're really, really, killing it at life right now. And, when you think about the places that you've been versus where you're
Yeah.
at now, what are some of the biggest points that you had to realize in order to get yourself there?
Well, one of the things that was really big for me was learning what is your story
Mm,
and what are you playing in your story and how you tell your story. Are you always the victim? Are you always the villain? Are you always the hero? Um, and are you telling your story over and over again like you're still experiencing it? You know? And why are you sharing your story? Like
yeah.
what are you getting out of
Hmm.
telling it over and over again? And by that I mean, are you repeating it over and over again because like stifling down? Or, well, I kind of felt like the villain, but I'm gonna tell this story like I'm the hero,
Hmm.
so I don't have to go through the healing process of my story.
Hmm.
Like, fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so that really, I started thinking about, how I looked at my life, not just how I was telling, you or other people my story, how I was telling myself my story, you know? And once I realized that, like, okay, in chapter 3, I'm really carrying the villain role when this and this happened, or and the here I'm carrying, and why am I doing that? And like it helped me go deeper. And then all of a sudden I started noticing patterns that I had never noticed before in my life.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say sometimes when you notice a pattern and you're really working on it and you think, I got that. It's almost like the universe. What is the meme says? Sometimes the universe will bring somebody back into your life that you released just to see if you're still a dumbass.
Right,
Like,
right. And
are
sometimes
you
it's the
are
same
you gonna do
person.
that again?
Sometimes
Yeah,
it's the same person, and sometimes it's an archetype of that same person. So it'll be like
exactly.
another woke rapist, or it'll be like another, like,
Yeah.
narcissist, or another, another opportunity for, a true love thing. And so like
Hmm.
it'll be these that it could be the same person that comes back around and be like, are you still open for me to, get my thing from you, whatever it is? Or it could
Yeah.
be another person, another archetype, and in a different body, but it's the same story.
Yeah. Or they're gonna embody all the people. Or,
The final
for me
boss.
too. Yes. And for me, I feel like, this summer I feel like I met the boss, and And it was funny because one of the things that they did is they really flared up my codependency. And I was like, I'm going to save them. I'm going to do it. And then I was like, I remember like right in mid like codependent rush, like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to help. And then I was like, "The am I doing? What the hell?" It's almost like, like, what am I doing? And then I was like, uh-oh, I'm in big trouble, or I'm going to be if I don't fix this, you
Yes.
know?
Could you
And if I
explain?
hadn't had my tools and
Yes.
I had not learned different things, I would have just gone like not even a spiral down. It would have been like a toilet bowl.
The vortex, the
Sideways.
maelstrom.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and it was the tools that I've learned that helped me like, oh no, dude, you gotta go. And I gotta, nope, this is not happening. And I actually took time to myself to have like a stern talking to me. Like, what are
Hmm.
you doing? What's going on? What's triggering you? What's the
Mm.
real deal?
Good. Well, you're using a lot of really great, great terminology and a lot of really great methodology. So, real quick, before we go much further, would you mind
Oh
just
yeah.
explaining what codependence is in your own words? Because that was something that I did not realize what it actually meant. Because sometimes what it sounds like isn't what it actually means. So, what does it mean to you?
um,
Just want to make sure that listeners are dialed into our meaning.
yeah, yeah. Codependency for me, it sounds like you are dependent on someone else. And for me, it is the exact opposite. I want somebody, I want to be the savior. I want to go save them. And part of the reason I want to save them is I just want them to love me, love me, love me. But not only that, but if I'm saving them and I'm helping them and I'm focusing on them, I don't have to do the work on my own ass. And that is the big that's like the big pillar of my codependency is wanting to help others, but not really for altruistic, and I do have altruistic wanting to help. And that's a big thing too, is there's a difference between helping somebody and being codependent. Helping somebody is when you have the time, the space, and the bandwidth to actually help somebody, and you do it in a way with boundaries that takes care of yourself.
Yes, you've got the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yes.
You're fully
Codependency,
inflated.
codependency, you're just, you're getting that love rush, that love hit, and you're getting all these things, and there's no boundaries. Your bank account is lowering. You're getting no sleep because you're helping this person or this organization or whatever you're getting that rush from. And yeah, it's almost like a drug. It's a drug, and it's a numbing um, coping technique. It's a numbing to keep you from loving yourself and doing the work that you need to do to overcome. And usually, from what I have found, is PTSD usually goes hand in hand with codependency. They're buddies. They're walking through life holding hands and leaning on each other. And and so a lot of people too, when they hear somebody's codependent, they're like, oh well, that sounds like a really wretched person. But if you actually look at it, it's like, no, they're really, really sad. Something happened to this person that the only way that they know to love is just you know, that's that's the way that they were taught. That's the way that they know, and that's their coping. So
So what
yeah,
comes
that
first, the PTSD or the codependence?
yeah. Because codependency usually comes from that how you learn to love as a child. And and for a majority of us, that's where a lot of our root trauma comes from. So,
We'll get
what
into
is it?
relationships, like codependent relationships that create more trauma, and then we get the PTSD from the relationships, to the adult
Yeah,
relationships too, and then it's like, wow, if we're just continuing to live this story again and connect to this
yeah,
archetype again and again until we get off of the
yeah,
drama triangle.
yeah. And it's funny, in the Yaya in the book, the Yaya Sisterhood, one of the things that the main character says is, adult or childhood is what you spend the rest of your adulthood getting over. And it's basically, we all got a bag of rocks. Just, you didn't have to be like beaten with a wet spaghetti noodle every night. It doesn't have to be like something horrible. We all have something from our childhood where we didn't understand. We didn't know. It's not always something like you read about in a book, like it's not that. We all have a bag of rocks we carry. And that's the big thing. Just gotta learn not to throw your rocks at somebody else or expect somebody else to carry your rocks or carry everybody else's rocks because you don't want them to.
Yes, yes, I love this
So,
analogy. This is so good. So, so I find it interesting too, because I feel like the PTSD and codependence and altruism, wanting to help. Um, I think that there's such an interesting relationship, because there's such a it's like the virtue and vice continuum. I've been bringing this up
mhm.
a lot lately. I really love this concept, because when we are in virtue, when we're helping in a healthy way that's not draining us, like that's good, it's positive, it's encouraged, right? And it feels good and it
Mhm.
helps people and it lifts all of us up. But it's just the tiny like little like shift of the needle that takes it to this codependent place. And when you have PTSD, something that they teach you to do is to help others, to kind of offset some of the pain, and to it helps with the healing. But then if
Mhm.
you're helping from a place of brokenness, and you're doing the helping in a way that's continuing to drain you, then that can become more problematic. So I often will compare the um, codependence to something like eating disorders, for instance. Like
Mhm.
we have to eat, and so it's just a matter of like regulating the thing that you have to do. Like in my opinion, like I feel like humans need others. We have to help each other. We have to be in relationship. We have to have that give and take, that reciprocity in a
Mhm.
relationship. And so it's only when the give and take becomes disordered, is when it turns into like codependency, when it's being done with an agenda, like I'm going to help you so that I can feel worthy of love, and then you're going to be beholden to me, and then I'm going to kind of actually control you because I helped you. So, and then when a person that you're helping is like, no,
Mhm.
you're not the boss of me, then you're like, oh, how could that
Yeah.
be? What are you doing? What do you mean? And
Yeah.
then it turns into this whole, then that's when we jump on the drama triangle. So I've always found it
Mhm.
interesting, the relationship that you mentioned, like the PTSD with the codependent. So is there anything else that you want to unpack with that?
Well, to get kind of nerdy, and I know Lauren Lomo is going to get really excited about this, but PTSD, it affects your amygdala, your frontal cortex, and your hippocampus. And that's where your like reasoning, your emotions, and your memory is. And so with that like going, it's no wonder things get murky. Things get really, really murky. Um, I know it's kind of a controversial diagnosis. I've been told that I have complex PTSD, which it's where you have multiple traumas for like over a year. But I do want to go on record that complex PTSD is not in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for the American Psychiatric Association. It is not in there as of yet. They just don't have enough about it or anything. It's a term that came up in 1988. And so it's new. It's kind of controversial because some therapists will bring it up and some are like, if it's not in the DSM, no ma'am, no sir. So, but it is, it is right there with just messing with your balance, messing with your brain, just getting that brain going. And I found, because I had so many traumas happening in 1 year, and that on top of the freaking childhood stuff and the, failed marriage, more like, I didn't know, I got out of that, right? It's not failure if you escape, right? But I found all of that. My main addiction was to chaos and drama because I did not know how to live not under fire. And my body and my brain was used to that, like, adrenaline of, like, oh, I got hit with something, and you get that adrenaline, and it's almost like I got addicted to that. I didn't believe that I deserved anything good, so I was stirring the pot, right? I was putting myself in situations of chaos, situations where it was possible to have crazy things happen and stuff, and it was because my addiction, it wasn't just what people think of addiction as, like, shopping or drinking and sex or whatever. Mine was, I don't know how to live in peace.
Yeah.
All I know is chaos.
I can relate to that.
And I don't think I'm worthy of love. So I'm just gonna have this hellacious cycle. And yeah, and then finally, once I realized that, like, yeah, there's been some people who've done some really horrible things to me, and there's been circumstances out of my control, but I'm placing myself in certain places, and I'm also not honoring myself, loving myself. I'm not setting boundaries. And I can't control what you do. I can't control the weather outside, but I can control me and what I allow in my life and what I do.
Yeah.
And I can set hard boundaries and limits. And yeah, once I realized I'm the author of this story.
Yes.
I am the author, and I can control the narrative.
So good.
That's when, and I have weak moments. I'm not, like I said, this summer, what the hell? And then, sometimes I will have a crappy day and I'm like, what is happening? But then when I go to bed at night, I know that, like, the next day, instead of, oh, poor pitiful me, or I'm going to go do this and this, or screw it, I'm like,
further into
well,
chaos.
yeah, like, I'm like, well, what can I do to make this better tomorrow?
Right.
What is my part? What can I do? Like, that really, it changed a lot for me.
Yeah.
And it opened my eyes to different relationships that I had and things like that, that I had set up. And some of them, I'd been friends with these people for years, and I set that friendship up in that pattern in a very, very dark place. and where I get my hit
Mm-hmm.
of chaos.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to just like touch on the physiological thing that's happening there, the addiction to chaos. When adrenaline strikes us, it's like speed, it like speeds you up.
Mhm.
You're like, I'm gonna like fight or flight, like what's gonna happen, it like gets everything like ramped up and like
Mhm.
high alert, high energy. And it can act just like speed, like cocaine, like meth, like caffeine, like
Mhm.
it works like in a similar way, the way that it stimulates your nervous system. And so getting addicted to like like I'm so offended, like, oh, just looking for
Yeah.
things like, oh, they said what, and like, oh, this person's being marginalized, like, oh my, how can I, like, oh, I'm gonna be
Mhm.
white savior, like whatever thing that we do, and
Yeah.
so like looking for things to just be like to get that
Mhm.
hit, looking, putting myself in situations where in the past of like oh, I need to be in charge of this thing, and it's my responsibility if this person behaves this way, and now I gotta like manage this thing, and they're not acting right, and now I get that hit of
Mhm.
adrenaline, and I gotta, so it's like working together with like the um yeah, the addiction to adrenaline, and then also, and the chaos, but then also like control in there too, it's a nice little
Mhm.
sidecar of control and addiction to that. And so yeah, I'm really 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 feeling what you're saying here. And then at what point did you have like an aha moment or something where you were kind of like, where you were like, wait a second, like I'm doing this? Was there anything that's kind of that you're able to share that's that won't harm anybody, but yeah, maintaining people's anonymity, things like that. I don't want to like put
Yeah.
anybody in
You
an
want to,
uncomfortable position.
yeah,
I
you
want
want
a
to
little
keep
like
your,
real world pivotal moment where you're like, okay, I was there, I was
yeah.
in the in the situation, and this is like where I had the aha moment.
Well, and it wasn't just one person, one thing. I started noticing with, like I said, certain friends and people that I would mingle with. Whenever it used to be that like I would be so offended, but yet still hang out or still, like
Yeah, let's go
still,
back for more of that. That was so like
yeah,
unpleasant. Let's go
let's
back for more. We all have another beacon
oh,
helping that,
let's
please.
but well, I gotta be forgiving, I gotta be loving and I gotta be forgiving.
Turn the other cheek.
No, and and I've had a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, trust me, I'm not always delicate about the fact that they have offended me. That's something I need to learn, is using grace with my tongue in moments. Like my lesson, and I will publicly say it, is I need to learn in moments when somebody really steps on a boundary, how to tell them in a graceful, nice way and not uh thunder.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's something that, I'm really working on. But I started noticing that I started speaking up for myself and saying that makes me uncomfortable. And whereas I used to, when I would tell somebody that makes me uncomfortable, I don't like that, don't do that, I would think, oh my God, they're going to be offended. Or did I hurt their feelings? Are they gonna go back and tell somebody that Desiree didn't help me in my time of need? And or, Desiree really made me upset, and then is everybody gonna hate me? Is all of Tucker gonna get together with pitchforks and drive me to Wilburn?
Desiree, you withholding cunt. How could you do
Yeah.
such a thing to not help me in my hour of need when I have gotten myself into this situation myself?
You you are banned to live on the far western corner of 316, you know. But I
Managed
just,
to the outhouse of the chicken farm and
yeah. Yeah, but I and then I realized I was like, what it, when when you tell somebody no and they get mad at you, you probably don't need that person in your life. Like
Mhm.
that's beyond a red flag. That's
Mhm.
a that's a big thing for me. And yeah, and also, cutting cycles, you know, if you're having the same conversation with somebody over and over and over again,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, but it's one of those things. And also, speaking my truth at work, it's just being honest and being honest with myself. Like that didn't feel good. I don't like that. Like why do I not like it? And
What's under
let's
that?
make sure that never happens again. And so that's when I started noticing, and I started noticing that like things started opening up for me, and I started letting go of certain hurts.
Mm.
You know, I stopped thinking. One of my things was is I felt like I was gonna die if I didn't get an apology. If somebody offended me,
Wow.
by God, please, yeah, like
Wow,
you,
what a disempowering thing to give someone that type of control over you.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, just living in your soul, rent free, not in your brain, in your soul.
Oh,
And finally, when I was like, you know what, they're probably never going to say they're sorry, and it's probably never going to happen, and you don't necessarily have to forgive them and go, that route. You just stop.
yeah. So when you say go
Like,
forgive them and go that route, are you talking about saying like, "Oh, it's fine, we're going to go back to where we were," or like back to being friends, or what do you mean by that route?
see, for me, especially with the trauma that I had as a child, and still, eh, one of the things that I have heard since I came out about it when I was 16, 17 is you got to forgive them. You've got to forgive him. The hell I do. I don't have to be around him. I don't, but don't tell me what I have to do and where I need to be in my healing.
It's so
And
personal.
it's like, yes. And it made me feel like there was something wrong with me that I wasn't at this moment of forgiveness,
Right.
and that I've still felt kind of angry sometimes, or, and things like that. And so I think forgiveness is a very personal and a very tricky
Mm.
area. And I'm not saying I'm not saying forgiveness is a bad thing. I think it's very personal, and I think people are driven to it. And sometimes people are driven to it because other people are uncomfortable with their anger or their trauma. Their, you know, please forgive them and move on because I'm really uncomfortable in your presence and I don't know how to deal with your pain.
Yeah, or it's more convenient for the family barbecue if you pretend like that didn't happen because we need to invite him because we like his
Yeah.
wife. We don't like necessarily like him, but we like his wife, so we want his wife to be included. And we can't say you can't come,
Yeah.
but your wife can because
Yeah.
you mess with little kids. But like it's just it's for people's convenience sometimes too. But
Yeah.
what about like that concept of the forgiveness is for you and not the person, not the perpetrator, not the person who offended you. So where are you at with that concept?
That concept is something that I will be honest with. I'm not going to BS anybody.
Hit me
It's
real
something
straight.
that I'm really working on. Um, I mean, I can let something go and not expect an apology. But there's certain times that my ass is still chapped, like I'm still like, and it's part of overcoming something of that nature of like, oh, you smell a smell,
Mm-hmm.
or a texture,
Mm-hmm.
something, and it takes you to that place and you
Mm-hmm.
get that rush because
Are you talking about it's
sometimes,
like reminding, like a trigger that's reminding you of trauma?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that. And so I'm working on that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
working on that. Um, just because sometimes, like I said, I could be touching a fabric at a store, like looking at clothes, and I touch the fabric and I all of a sudden, and from what I understand, what I have learned in my experience is, um here, emotionally might be at one place, but my brain, when I touch that thing that feels like something that was happening to me,
Mm-hmm.
my body instantly goes protect, protect, protect.
Right.
And so I'm learning to, and I get the different emotion that comes from that. So forgiveness is kind of tricky for me, and it's something that I'm working on within myself and with coaching therapy and things like that is forgiveness. And part of it too is like we were talking about, having people say, you got to forgive, you got to forgive, you know.
It's really personal. It's between you and that person, and that karmic contract. And
Exactly.
it's not about the other people. I have been in that situation before where I was being urged to forgive so that this person could come back around and be in the camp and like all this stuff, and I just was like, I'm not comfortable, and everybody wanted to just have the person be around. And then
Hmm.
it's like, it's the same, they don't realize it's the same feeling, being in an abusive relationship, it's the same feeling of like, I don't want to be at the family reunion with that particular uncle because of
Yeah.
and it's like it's a similar thing, but everyone's like, oh, just but what I did find was eventually like um my hanging on to it, and my unforgiveness, and my triggers, and all of those things, they were keeping me in that story, keeping me in that loop, keeping me in that trauma response, which is,
Hmm.
that's it's PTSD. It's the whole it's the pathology of it. And like telling somebody, don't give someone free rent in your head, that's
Hmm.
not therapeutic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want
Yeah.
that. Like, do you think I want that person in my head? Like, please, I would give anything to get this out of my head. But it's about, from what I've just figured out in my own journey with this, it's realizing that it's truly me deciding that I'm tired of telling that story. I'm tired of playing that role. I'm tired
Hmm.
of that cycle going on repeat. And it wasn't until I was just really good and damn tired of it did I say, like, all right, I quit. I release you. I don't need an apology. I don't need an acknowledgement. I don't need closure. That's not promised to any of us. Like, that's a,
Yeah.
when I talk about fairy tales, closure is a fairy tale. Nobody, nobody's entitled to that. Would it be nice? Yes, but just
Yeah.
like realizing that I needed to, because it was in my head, my story, my nervous system. I had to um, decide that I'm really just done with letting that have control over me. And it took years and layers of working at it, but
Yeah.
there's no timeline for it. Like, that you work at your own timeline. You do it when you are ready, and if you're not ready, you're not ready, and I respect that.
Yeah. And, forgiveness is different for everybody. And, um, one person might reach that at X amount of time in therapy and healing work and things like that. And another person, it might take longer. And I think, I think we got to be very delicate with somebody who, or, very, not delicate, but considerate
Mm-hmm.
of people's journey to forgiveness, or how they, like it's very, you know, we humans like to put a stigma of shame to everything. I don't know what it is about the human condition that we like to do that. But we will even shame somebody for how they go about forgiving and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so it's like you get this feeling of like, oh wait, I'm not doing this. And it's like, I'm doing it at my own pace, you know?
Yeah, I'm not doing shame anymore. I gave up shame. I'm doing shameless.
Yeah,
I'm shameless,
yeah.
and,
It's a,
and I'm
you
not going
know
to
what?
apologize for it.
I love it. My therapist says that shame is a useless emotion.
Yeah, it's the Brene Brown says that the difference between guilt and shame is guilt is when I feel bad because I had a bad behavior, I did something bad, and shame is I am bad.
Exactly. Exactly. And yeah, I don't, mm-mm. No, that's
Shameless.
no.
Nope, not participating in that. That is one story. Even if I'm not like to the place of, even if I'm on the journey and I'm not to the place of being able to, forgive a person yet or release it or whatever, I just decided not to do shame when I was going through when I was working with women in rape response. One of the
Mhm.
biggest obstacles to healing was shame. If a person was holding on to shame, that there is some way that they could have changed, maybe if they were different, if they weren't in that place, if they weren't wearing that, if they weren't, all, send that signal, whatever, that
Oh,
they could
yeah.
have done something um to change that situation, or um, or because that situation happened, that means that there's something shameful about them, that they're bad, or that they're
Yeah.
not worthy of protection, or they're not
Mhm.
worthy of respect, or having their boundaries, but all of that is it's stories, it's all stories, and we get to choose when we're ready at our own pace through support and love and coaching.
Yeah.
We get to
Yeah.
choose when we're ready to write a different story, and it's
Mhm.
personal, and sometimes we're here to run a story into the ground until we are good and damn done with
Yeah.
it, and it's like if I'm still
Yeah.
singing and dancing and still doing this, this bit or whatever, I'm still
Mhm.
doing it. Don't buy a ticket to it. I'll be over here doing
Yeah.
till I'm
Yeah,
good and damn ready, and then
exactly.
finally I'm just like, well, this isn't fun anymore. I'm ready to tell a different
Yeah.
story, but
Yes.
it takes some time. It takes some time. It takes a lot of um, acknowledging what control you have.
And letting go of shame, my life is so much happier now. I mean, I know that sounds so simple, but letting go of shame and not allowing it in my life anymore, it also helps me because if I do have, you know, somebody in my life who tries to use that as a tool, it doesn't work.
Mm-mm,
It
no,
does not work.
shameless,
Like, yeah,
shameless.
yeah, like you're, and it just, plus, I mean, once I let go of shame, started loving things about myself. That's what when we opened this, I said I was born a goober and I'll die one too. Like
Yes,
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I like my weird ways that I used to
yes.
be, and my little ticks and
Hmm.
styming and stuff that like I used to be ashamed of. And now I'm like, hey, look, this is cool. I do this when I get nervous.
I love that. Yeah, that's really helped me a lot too, to like on my journey to like being shameless, to like really like lean into my weirdness, really
Yeah.
leaning into like my authentic, like I will tell you, like I'll tell you all my secrets and tell you all that stuff so that no one can use that against me, because I'm already,
Yeah.
like it's out there now, so nobody's got that over me, and it's a powerful tool, and just being and talking about it and knowing that,
Hmm.
making yourself vulnerable so that no one else can do it first. Like, no, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
It's a strength. It's truly a strength.
And I also, I don't just do it for myself. Sometimes like I'll open up about certain things. Um, to take the shame off of it and the stigma. So if somebody is feeling, as we have discussed, if they're feeling alone and they're not wanting to reach out for help and they don't know what to do, and they're like, man, I feel really bad about this or this diagnosis that I have and having to do this and that. And but if I say something and they're like, me too, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or if I
Mm-hmm.
embrace it and I'm like, I still love me and I'm still doing okay. And gosh darn it, people love you too,
Yep.
you know, and like, and they see me embracing it, it takes away that stigma.
Yeah, it takes away the
And
power when we talk about things that, shame,
yeah,
when we talk about the things that, we want to put into the shame, dark corner, then it brings light to it, and then it can't exist in shame anymore.
yes.
It just exists in humanness.
Mhm.
And it takes the power away from it, and then that's when you can heal. That was the biggest thing that I noticed, was like the shame was the biggest obstacle to healing. And so just not participating in that, saying like, okay, like now I'm dealing with this diagnosis. I need to be on this medication. I need this kind of help. I need to share like what happened. I need
Mhm.
to know that that kind of thing can happen in someone's past and I can still be okay. And I not only okay, but like thriving and being a leader and
Exactly.
being whole and complete and having love, being worthy of love, being treated
Mhm.
properly, that a person can go from whatever, happened that we want to put in the shame corner, to like to being a beacon of light and healing from that. So tell me a little bit more about like um what you're hoping that people are feeling. Like there's been such an uptick in mental health awareness over the pandemic. There was
Yeah.
um yeah, I'll just let you kind of take the wheel with this.
Well, it's great that we are very aware of mental health and it like oh, that sounded crazy, but like sounded repetitive. But anyway, it it's so wonderful that we have come to where we are with mental health awareness. I mean, we've come leap and bounds, but at the same time, we'll talk about mental health. But if somebody says, I have this diagnosis, people are like, whoa. And it's like, no, part of mental health awareness is there is no stigmatizing anybody's diagnosis. There is no. And that's one thing. If I do ever hear somebody say, "Oh, well, they had," and kind of, you know, no, not on my watch. You're not gonna do that, in front of me, because there's not a hierarchy of mental health battles and things. There's not like, oh well, here's anxiety, and over here is like really crazy, like no, no, no. It's all the issue. You don't look at somebody and say that one physiological problem is worse than you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like everybody's got something that they're dealing with, and if
yeah,
all of us were to take a quiz on mental illnesses and diagnoses, we're
yeah,
going to be every single person is going to like be at least on the borderline of something. Like
yeah.
it's just how it is, and different times in your life are going to you're going to have seasonal times. Like
Mhm.
there was a time at the beginning of this past summer that I got triggered and I had been stressing myself out, and then this person came into my field that was a perceived threat, and like just and I just ended up getting like really spiraled out, and I was if, and I even took like a little quiz online in that moment, there was like about a 2 week window where I was like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And I was like, yeah, I would fit into a diagnosis of OCD right now, obsessive
Hmm.
compulsive disorder. I was caught in thought loops, couldn't stop, giving this person free rent in my head, couldn't stop thinking about, the different outside things were triggering it and
Hmm.
continuing me on that pattern, that loop. And I was like, yeah, I am, yep, I would probably get diagnosed as this in this, but it only lasted for 2 weeks. I was able to get a pattern interrupt to get myself out of it. And shout out to Jason Blaine. Thank you. I love you. And he's the one that helped me get off of the merry-go-round of insanity.
Hmm.
And then there's been different times in my life that I would have, been diagnosed with like postpartum depression or like, extreme anxiety or different things. But um, those were seasons and they don't define me. There's
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that it's important to understand that um, that just because we might have a season of, this diagnosis or this title or whatever, doesn't mean that it has to be us forever.
Yeah.
And then there's some things that I'm like, yeah, probably neurologically, I'm probably going to always, have a little bit of ADD, and I might always need to take something to help my brain do executive function, and that's okay. And then there's
Yes.
times, and then there's been times that I'm like, well, I'm not really like subscribing to that right now. I'm not going to be medicated, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of functioning at like 75%, or, or if I take a little, receive a little bit of help for it, then I can function at a much higher rate, and so there's
Hmm.
different degrees of, is this like a lifetime neurological chemical thing that's happening, or is it situational and you've just found yourself in a spot, in a season of mental illness,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I think when we put, like I said, that hierarchy of like, oh, well, anxiety's here and OCD's here and, um, people are less likely to reach out for help.
Yeah. I
And
know somebody that has schizophrenia, and it's very well controlled with meds, and they're an entrepreneur, a very successful business, and have a partner and a child, and you would never know. Or they're just so like high functioning, and I would never want
mhm.
that, stigma to be like, oh, like you can't be close with this person, or you can't trust this person, or you can't, this
Yeah,
person's not
yeah,
stable, because this person is like more stable than a lot of people that I know right now, and yet they have this, situation that, by the grace of God has been, they found the thing that helps them to feel balanced. But it's really, we should never like write somebody off completely based on something like that. Now, your own experiences with a person, if there's a pattern and it's not healthy,
yes.
then that's personal, that's your own experience with them, but not just like give, just, people need chances to be able to, present as their authentic self, not just a diagnosis.
Yeah, and just because there is a film about a mental illness or you read a book about a mental illness, um, that does not define everything and everyone's experience with it. And also, Hollywood's they're gonna glorify everything and make everything crazy. Look what they did with women for how many years, where a woman was just a damsel in distress or a secretary in movies, and things like that. So God only knows what they'll do with like illnesses. So it's like, and unfortunately, that is how a lot of people are educated about mental health, is watching these fantastical movies or hearing these almost like urban legends of so and so who live down the street, and all that, and so I one of the things that I did is I started educating myself about different things, and also just taking the stigma off myself, and being open and honest with people. Um, and kind of like, hey, it's society says you're weird. It's okay to be weird here. So that's what me and
Freedom
my
is
friends
like,
say.
Weird is the new sexy is my phrase.
Yes. Well, I put on Facebook all the time, I'm just gonna get weirder and hotter and nothing's gonna stop me.
Yep. Yep. True. Yep. Yep, can confirm. Can confirm. So, just in this last few minutes that we have left, I guess I would just love to hear how coaching has like specifically like helped you in this journey, and like what it's done for
Yeah.
you. I guess what are some of the things
Yeah.
you've learned?
Well, one of the things for me is I am the kind of person that I have to put things in motion. I have to do things to learn them and to grasp a concept sometimes. Um, you can tell me all you want about caving or spelunking or something, but I have to, like, yeah, I'll read the manual, but I have to go and do it. Um,
Yes.
and so that's what I love. And it gives me like an assignment
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
and like a little goal. And that for me, my like little nerdy achieving heart is like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, achievement unlocked. Like,
Yes, yes, I like it. I like that too. I really like having homework. I like having assignments. I remember before I
Uh-huh.
got into coaching, one of my it was a therapist had me do like drawings and art and things like that. And I was just, and that was one of my most effective therapists that I ever had. Like she had me do art and do things that were specific to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm an artist, and so like it meant so much for me to do my therapy in that way. And so so do you have any little highlight reels or anything like specific that you had a coach share with you that really just gave you a great breakthrough or just really meant something to you?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it sounds like I'm bullshitting everybody, but I've had a lot. Like it's hard to um, really grab certain moments because there's been times that we've had coaching with the, Supernova Society and we're, having our Taco Tuesday and listening to someone else or doing something. And, in those coaching moments as a group, I will grab something or notice a pattern or, hey, wait, I need to stop saying that to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
was like a big thing with you and with Benedetto that I learned that I was saying certain things to myself and talking certain ways
Yes.
that I I had to like reprogram my brain a
Mm-hmm.
little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, 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 don't, that's not how you talk to yourself. Like you would probably be mama bear on somebody if you heard them talking the way you're talking to yourself.
Yeah.
If you heard somebody else talking to your best friend that way, you would be like
Oh hell no.
dukes up,
Right,
like.
right. And usually
But
it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
even
I'm that.
ourselves. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually like we're this voice that's coming through that we're like beating ourselves up with is usually something from childhood, like when we were a child and needed like redirecting or like needed
Hmm.
reprimanding or things like that,
Yeah.
that we were learning. And then that imprints as like, one, you wouldn't say that to an adult. And then two, some of the stuff is like, you really shouldn't say it to a child either. But there it is. It's in our psyche, and we just get imprinted by whatever. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be a parent. It can be a teacher, a coach, like a sports coach, like whatever, somebody's mean mom, at the bake sale, whatever. It could be
Yeah.
whatever, a crossing guard that hollered at you and hurt your feelings. Like whoever like first like hurt our feelings and spoke ugly to us in childhood, that's usually a voice that gets imprinted, and we'll say that to ourselves, like it's us, like it's ourselves. And then
Hmm.
and then just realizing that is not, who's even saying that?
Yeah.
That's not even my voice. Like, why?
Yeah. And also like this is hopeless or this, this is, a shitty situation. And it's like, look, it stinks right now, but it's not forever.
Yeah,
Um, what can I get out of this?
right.
What's what's in it for me? Like
Hmm.
what
Yeah,
am
like
I getting? you
Because
know?
if you can figure out a lesson in whatever, trauma or tragedy or whatever, then you always win. Like there, like I will squeeze the life out of something just to get, like, I will get a lesson. Like nothing will happen to me, mark my words, nothing will happen to me that I won't figure out how to make it benefit me in some
Oh,
way.
yeah.
I'm here to get the value out of
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
happens, and I will. I'll find it. I will squeeze it to death. I'll figure something out. But yeah, it's been just a pleasure to work with you. And
Definitely.
I remember our first call, um, and you were nervous about making a vision board because you were concerned about like religious dogma
Yeah.
and whether or not it was okay to,
Hmm.
if that was Christian, is that Christian?
Yeah.
And you've come so far. You've come so far. I'm
Yeah.
not making fun of you. I'm like, I feel that like deeply because that was
Yeah.
something that was uh difficult for me too, and like really stepping into my gifts and like my intuition and things like that. Like,
Hmm.
is this Christian? Is this witchcraft? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And yeah, and then the answer is that it is my pure truth, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if it's making me a better person, and a vision
Hmm.
board's making you a better person and helping you to expand and grow and develop into this beautiful human before
Hmm.
me, like you've come
Oh,
so
thank
far,
you. Oh,
so
thank
far in such
you.
a short amount of time. Like you've just completely unfolded. Like you just, like the love and the devotion and the investment that you made in yourself has just been so fruitful. And I've just
Thank
been
you.
like in awe, like the way that you were when you first reached out to me, like for like a social situation a long time ago
Hmm.
versus where you're at now. Like, wow.
Thank you. Thank
Wow.
you. You know what? That, even though it was only about 2 years ago, it feels like a lifetime. And
Yeah.
it's not just because of COVID,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
because of
This was
COVID.
before COVID.
It,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was, it seems like that was a whole other person.
Yes. I agree.
And yeah, and yeah, I feel I'm okay. I'm okay getting the Desi scissor hands out whenever I see something it's not good, and I'll, cut it
Cut it out.
out.
Cut it out.
Cut it, cut
Just
it,
like
cut it, cut it,
the
you know.
toxic,
But
get
yeah,
out boundary. You get a boundary. You get a boundary. You get a boundary.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And so it's good, and I feel like it's growing. I feel like I feel like I'm in a good place, and a lot of it has to do with therapy,
Yes.
with working with coaching,
Yes.
and working with a community of people who are committed to helping people live their truth, to have good, like, not, and like, it's not just taking, it's also like giving a little bit in a healthy, non-codependent way.
Yes. Yes. Doing it in a way where you
It's
put the oxygen mask on yourself first and you are
yes,
fully oxygenated, and then
yes.
you can help others.
Mhm. Mhm. And taking those days of rest and taking
Mm,
that time for me, you know.
absolutely. Your
So
self-worth and the way that you value yourself and invest in yourself has
yeah.
been like the huge, it's
And
it's such a pivotal step that you've taken.
mhm. I'm thankful to you and to Brian and Lauren. You guys have made an amazing container.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I really do appreciate you being in the Supernova Society, our
Mhm.
our container, and being my friend and showing up the way that you do in the community, and most importantly showing up for yourself, because when you are showing
No,
up in
thanks.
your greatness, then you're giving other people that are watching you
Hmm.
permission to do the same. And there's
Yes.
young women and men and there are people that are looking at you and watching your transformation and seeing how you show up in our culture, in our social groups and
Hmm.
things, and saying like, wow, if Desiree was here and now she's here and she's got such a great outlook on life, like maybe there's hope for me too.
Hmm. And someone in our group um has a saying, and I have it at my desk, and I try to look at it as much as I can, is what's the best that can happen. And so when you do get to that moment where you're feeling kind of grody and you don't know, and because look, the path to healing is not one straight path. It's not up, it's not down. And sometimes you'll take steps forward and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, how did I? It's like a weird game of Candyland and Twister at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
time.
A little cha-cha.
Yeah, little
Step
shoots and
forward, 2 steps
ladders.
back.
And so, it's kind of strange sometimes, but you got to give yourself grace, and you got to remember what's the best that can happen.
Yes.
So, yeah. And
Yeah.
I do appreciate you guys.
Well, thank
So
you so much. I'm seeing the best that you're making work for you is that you've got a job that you love, and there's like room for advancement, and you've got a special someone, and you're just you just seem so different, and I love the transformation that I've seen, and you've always been your sweet, hilarious, fun,
thank
sassy self, and
you.
I just appreciate your sweet soul so much, and I know that
Thank
will never
you.
change.
Thanks. And even when the job is hard and not as pleasant as I want, or if there's a part in the relationship that I don't like, no matter what happens in them, I am still the same. And it happens for the best for me.
Yes, yes, and that is the shift in the story. That is
Yes.
that is the underlying theme of this story is it's always going to work out in the best for me.
Yes.
And if it's not
As
there yet, the
Abraham
story's
Hicks.
not over.
I'm very Abraham Hicksish.
Yes, same, same. Bliss, bliss.
So,
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much
yes.
for your beautiful presence and
Thank
sharing your
you.
sweet heart with all of us. And I'm just so grateful to know you. So thanks again for showing
Oh,
up.
thank you. And you have a wonderful evening.
Okay, thank you so much.